Welcome back to your midweek guilty pleasure, the Salty Goddess podcast. And I'm Anne Margaret Perry. And we're going to talk today about working memory dysfunction. It's a real thing, my friends. It's a real thing. And so here we go. You ever walk into a room and you forget why you're there? You hold a brilliant idea in your head just long enough to lose it like a sock in a dryer. Welcome to Working Memory Mayhem. Working Memory Hell. Okay? So there is a difference between working memory and short-term memory. Okay? Just remembering, it's a myth for executive dysfunction brains. Okay? Your brain bandwidth does not equal brain power. Not at all. So let's first delve into what is short-term memory, what is working memory. Short-term memory, my friends, pretty straightforward. What is it? Short-term memory. It is your temporary memory, okay? 15 to 30 seconds. It's your brain's clipboard. It stores small amounts of information passively. The capacity for short-term memory is about 7 items, plus or minus 2, according to Miller's Law. It's hearing a phone number and remembering just long enough to be able to dial it. Okay? That's short-term memory. We talk about memory like we talk about goldfish, right? We say it's like 3 seconds, right? It's a little bit longer than that, but not much. Okay. Working memory is your brain's executive assistant. This holds information, but it also manipulates and uses that information to do things. It is the active processing station where real thinking takes place. It allows you to hold, to organize, and to use information for specific tasks. All right? It involves attention control, processing, and mental manipulation. It's essential for reasoning and for comprehension, for decision making, and for learning. Its capacity is slightly more limited than short-term memory, but it is so dynamic, so dynamic. It involves verbal and visual and spatial loops, and it relies heavily on your prefrontal lobe. This is where executive function headquarters is. Okay, so it allows you to do math in your head while remembering the steps. Okay, it allows you to listen to a story to predict what is about to come next in that story. Okay, it helps you predict things. Right? So short-term memory is like opening a single tab on your browser and glancing at it. Your working memory is like having 5 tabs open on your browser, writing an email while referencing information from each one of those tabs in the email. Does that make sense? It's far more dynamic than your short-term memory. Okay, so the executive dysfunction is remembering something temporarily, but then being unable to manipulate it. It's not stupidity. It's like overload. It's like your RAM is fried. Okay. So the computer that I have in my command center has 8 monitors, 8 43-inch monitors. So I have multiple graphics cards and I have 128 gigs of RAM to allow for those 8 monitors to work together and not get overloaded and freeze up and crash. Okay. You also have to have a very specific motherboard to have all of those graphics and to have all of those monitors. All right. And the settings have to be just right for them all to work in concert with one another. Okay. You can build better scaffolding for your memory, but it requires tools and resources. You have to be willing to wrangle in those resources and those tools so that you can build a better scaffolding for your memory. Okay? You absolutely must. Now, again, short-term memory is remembering the ingredients. But working memory is using those ingredients to cook dinner while your kid is screaming at the top of their lungs about Paw Patrol. Your cat is puking on the carpet and your dog is shitting in the corner. Okay, it's being able to do those things even with those extra distractions. Why is memory so important? It's really, really super important, because without it, or when you don't have it working to its maximum or optimal abilities, it can cause issues. Okay? So just know that your brain is it's like a leaky cup. It's a cognitive cupboard, if you will. I'm actually stealing that from someone else who told me that their brain is like a cupboard, and when they add more things to it, shit falls out of the back. It's finite and they can only hold so much of it. Okay? So you don't have the ability to use the dynamic portions of your brain and its abilities. Okay? All right. So when people claim that they can multitask and they can do all these different things, they're full of shit, because they can't. What they're doing is actually not multitasking. Okay? So we're going to get around to that, and I'll explain all of that in just a little bit. But let's talk about how cognitive overload wrecks your retention. Okay? And why you can't remember shit when you're mentally maxed out. So working memory has a bandwidth limit, and that bandwidth is not that wide. Your working memory is like your brain's RAM. It's not your hard drive. It's limited. Once you max out the capacity, and that's usually about 4 to 7 chunks of information, anything beyond that either gets dumped, dropped, distorted, or literally gets pushed off the mental cliff into the abyss, never to be remembered again. Okay, so retention requires space. So when your brain's RAM is full, it can't encode new information into long-term memory. You're just juggling way too many flaming swords at that moment. Okay, and you can't file away the important stuff. Now, does that mean you're dumb? Does that mean you're stupid? Does that mean no. But when you're overloaded, your limbic system, remember the limbic system that screams danger, danger, Will Robinson, danger. This floods your system with cortisol. Cortisol narrows your attention span. It actually reduces neural plasticity, which means your brain's not going to be resilient. It shuts down the hippocampus, which is where your long-term memory is consolidated. So your brain can't store what it doesn't fully process. It's too busy dealing with survival mode from the cortisol that's flooding your system. Okay? So context switching and distraction, they wreck memory and encoding without a doubt. All right. When you're multitasking, you're distracted or you're overstimulated, you don't deeply encode the information Okay, it's almost like you're skimming a book versus studying it and reading it chapter by chapter. Shallow encoding equals poor memory retrieval later on. Okay, deep encoding means you'll have long-term retention. Okay, so if it didn't go in with intention, it will not come out with precision. Okay, so cognitive overload means that you're taking in more information than your brain can organize or connect. It's like dumping 1,000 puzzle pieces on the table and having no picture to guide you. Without integration, in other words, meaning making, there's no retention. Your brain files meaning. It doesn't file objects or noise or lists. Okay, so once you're cognitively drained, you lose access to executive function like retrieval and synthesis, that synthesis of information that allows you to manipulate it and take something out of it. You might know something, but you can't pull it up on demand because your brain is tired. So memory without recall is like a locked filing cabinet with no key. Okay, so your brain is not a bottomless mimosa. It's more like a shot glass of capacity. I love alcohol. I love the way I bring alcohol into these things. You pour too much at once and it just spills everywhere. Sticky, wasted, absolutely not getting stored for later. Nowhere. Okay, so cognitive overload depletes retention because your working memory is full. Stress blocks memory function and memory formation. Your attention gets fractured. There's no integration, so there's no storage. Mental fatigue makes recall impossible. Simple. So, the myth of multitasking. Multitasking is a lie. You're not doing more. You're just doing everything worse. Okay? Your brain is quietly screaming while you pretend that you're slaying it. So you're doing 4 things at once. All 4 of those things are not being done to the best capacity. They're not being done to the best quality. Okay? It's shit. All right? So when you think you're multitasking, you think, oh, I'm a badass. I can answer my emails. I can text my friend. I can cook dinner. I can run a Zoom meeting. And I can solve world peace all at the same time. No, bitch, you can't. No, babe. What you're doing is rapid fire task switching. And every switch burns brain fuel. It fractures your focus and it tanks your performance. Your performance takes a nosedive. Okay? So, multitasking is a neurological myth. Your brain can only focus on one cognitively demanding task at a time, period. So when you multitask, you're actually switching tasks back and forth. You reset context each and every single time, which takes mental energy, increasing the time each task takes to complete. You're decreasing your accuracy and your retention, and you're doubling your error rate. Studies show multitasking can reduce productivity by as much as 40%. It impairs working memory and literally drops your IQ temporarily while you're task switching. Yeah, temporarily. This isn't sass, my friends. This is science. This is for real. So, every switch in context that you make has a cost. Each time you flip from writing an email to checking a text to responding to a Slack or a Teams ping, you create attention residue, the leftover brain fog from the last task. You reset your mental context. You burn glucose and oxygen unnecessarily. And you wreck your ability to encode and retain information. So trying to multitask is like trying to make 5 gourmet meals at once with 1 pan, 1 burner, and a squirrel on Adderall managing your timers. So, the executive dysfunction twist. For people struggling with executive dysfunction, multitasking isn't just inefficient. It's a landmine. It amplifies your overwhelming feelings. It drains cognitive energy much faster, and it leaves a trail of half-finished tasks, guilt, and shame in its wake. The most powerful flex, I dare say, my friends, in 2025 is deep focus. Batching similar tasks together so you don't have to switch that context. Oh, what? Didn't somebody say something about that with time management and task initiation? Batch similar tasks. Set a timer. Block distractions. Put your phone down. All right? Put your phone down. Put it on silent. Pay attention. Complete one meaningful thing at a time. Then rest that couple minutes and repeat, because done beats scatterbrained. Complete and accurate beats multiple completes with multiple errors. Always. Always. So multitasking is a lie. Task switching is cognitive sabotage. And you deserve better than a brain running on fragmented fumes. Okay? So that's what there is to that. All right? Now, when it comes to forgetfulness, let's talk about why forgetting feels like a personal failure, even though it's usually a neurological bottleneck and not a character flaw. We tie our memory to identity and competence. We've been conditioned to believe that remembering equals intelligence equals value. So when you forget something like a name, a deadline, an instruction someone just told you, the one thing you meant to bring, you forgot. It feels like a glitch in your self-worth software. You internalize it as, oh, I'm careless. I'm stupid. I let someone down. They're going to think I'm careless. They're going to think I'm stupid. They're going to think I let them down. But memory is a function, not part of your character. It's not a moral compass. Okay? Forgetting can be publicly visible. Other people can see you forget things, but it's quietly shameful. People see the result. You forgot the form, you forgot the name, you forgot the commitment, you forgot the deadline, but they don't see the effort, how hard you tried to remember it. Okay? Your sticky note system, the alarms you ignored because your phone was dead, the spiral notebook with 4 pages of scribbles and 37 open tabs. None of that effort is visible. So the only thing that's seen is the fumble. And that spotlight feels like judgment, even when it's not. Executive dysfunction makes it worse, and no one gets it. When you live with executive dysfunction, memory issues aren't laziness, they're neurological. But try telling that to a person who just says, you just need to focus more. Maybe if you cared, you'd remember. Or you always do this. Cue the shame spiral, the self-criticism, and the quiet internal scream of, why can't I just remember like everyone else? The repetition of forgetting creates learned incompetence. Each forgotten task chips away at your self-confidence. And over time, you don't just fear forgetting, you actually expect it. You pre-apologize, you explain, you're like, don't expect me to remember that because I'm not gonna. Or you overcompensate, you avoid commitments altogether. You stop trusting yourself. And that's not memory loss, it's actually memory trauma. Because society equates organization with morality. Only the immoral or amoral aren't organized. People who are on task, on time, on point, are treated as more responsible, more mature, more valuable. So when you forget something, even something minor, Your brain screams at you internally. You're failing at life. Your cortisol level goes up. Oh, what happens when your cortisol level goes up? Memory ability goes down. So that's not the truth. You're not failing at life. Even though you've forgotten something, what actually happened is that your brain was overloaded. Your stress levels hijacked your recall, and you're managing 1,000 tabs being open with 2 gigabytes of RAM. Remember my computer? It has 128 gigs. Okay? So what's the truth? The truth is forgetting is not a character flaw. It's not a lack of effort, care, or competence. It's your brain triaging too much input and not enough structure. And you are not your executive dysfunction. You are not what is your quote unquote diagnosis. Okay? You didn't fail. You just reached your processing limit. And that's not weakness. That's being human. Okay? So, emotional dysregulation does take place from memory failures. When forgetfulness doesn't just cost you time, it hijacks your self-worth, your mood, and your sense of safety. You forget a name, a deadline, an appointment, something simple yet again. And it seems small to outsiders, but to you, it's not just a mistake. It feels like personal collapse. Your brain triggers a stress response. You did it again. People are going to think you're flaky. People are going to think you're lazy. People are going to think you're careless. You're irresponsible. And your limbic system goes directly to DEFCON 1. The emotional response isn't proportional. It's explosive. It's consuming. Because this isn't about the task. It's about what it represents. And you fear being seen as incompetent. You have past trauma of being punished for not paying attention. A belief that forgetting equals failure equals no value. That is emotional dysregulation. And it shows up as intense shame, sudden rage at yourself or at others, crippling anxiety for some, internalized disgust or humiliation, okay? Or a feeling of despair that is disproportionate to the situation at hand. Memory failures and emotional dysregulation equal trauma-informed nervous systems reacting to a perceived danger. It's not about the calendar event. It's about the emotional weight carried from years of being scolded or shamed for being spacey or a space cadet. Overcompensating to prove your worth in other ways because you have dysregulated memory. Okay? Being told your laziness was the problem. And from trying to make the chaos seem like it was well put together. Forgetting becomes a trigger, not because you're dramatic. Triggers aren't dramatic, okay? It's because your entire nervous system has been trained to expect punishment, loss, or embarrassment when that happens, okay? So it's not that you overreacted to a forgotten task. It's that your trauma, shame, and lived experience all showed up at once like uninvited party guests. And your nervous system lit a fire trying to protect you from what it remembers. What it looks like in real life, you forgot to return a text. You spiral and convince yourself the person hates you. You miss a meeting. You over-apologize, cry, or shut down completely. You forget what someone said, so you get angry or embarrassed and beat yourself up for never paying attention. You lose track of a to-do list item, and you suddenly feel like a burden to your team, to your family, to your partner. But the truth is, emotional dysregulation from memory failures isn't about weakness. It's a result of executive dysfunction, shame conditioning. Thank you, moms and dads, okay? And teachers, coaches, you assholes. And then, of course, neuroplastic patterns of fear and worth are tied to your performance. So, call it what it is. It's dysregulation. I'm dysregulated because forgetting this made me feel ashamed, unworthy, and a failure. Be compassionate to yourself. Don't do that. Be compassionate to yourself. Do it. Build supportive memory scaffolds, not to fix you, but to ease the emotional load of remembering. De-shame the moment. You forgot something. That's not a moral failure. It's a moment. Track the feeling, not just the failure. Ask, what does this feel like? And what is it trying to protect me from? Emotional dysregulation from memory failures is not weakness. It is a trauma-informed response to perceived danger rooted in shame, expectation, and survival mode conditioning. And I promise you, y'all can retrain your nervous system to stop spiraling after every time you forget something. Okay? So, I've got some action items for you. I've got some tools. You can try a partner anchor check-in, which is a non-judgmental, co-regulated prompt from a trusted partner to help you. Trusted partner to spark task initiation, to break task initiation paralysis, to maintain forward motion, offer a reality tether without emotional barbed wire. Think of it as that neutral nudge that says, hey, I see you. You said this mattered. How can I help you get back to it? And it's important that it be shame-free, because if the check-in feels like a test, a guilt trip, a performance review, or that spotlight, it won't work because it won't motivate you. It will shut down task initiation. It'll reinforce avoidance, and it'll sabotage trust. So use those anchor check-ins without shame. Agree on a system up front. Okay? You both need to understand, to know, and be aware of what support looks like for each one of you, what tone is helpful and which one is not, what time or method works best, and what words feel safe and which ones shut you down. If you see me, this is how you say this, okay? If you see me stalling or spiraling or not initiating a task, ask me, hey, what's your next move? What's next on your list? Instead of saying, did you get it done yet? Because prompting with no shame will allow the other person to re-engage without panicking them and setting off those danger, Will Robinson messages to their brain. And it's called supportive scaffolding, not surveillance. Use neutral, non-loaded language. Shame-free check-ins sound like, do you need a body double for 10 minutes? Want to talk through what's feeling stuck? Is this a pressure thing or a prep thing? Want me to set a timer? Sit with you while you start? Do you need help chunking it or just getting it started? What you should not use are statements like, or questions like, why haven't you done that yet? Didn't I already remind you? Seriously? Again? Tone and wording dictate the outcome. You must choose them wisely if you're going to be a supportive partner or anchor check-in. Use curiosity instead of correction. Maybe saying, what's getting in your way? Not, why haven't you handled that yet? This helps the brain stay in executive mode instead of dropping into defensive limbic danger mode. Okay? Time it with emotional safety in mind. Don't ask in the middle of a meltdown. Somebody's like, oh, I forgot that. Don't start peppering them with those questions. Your curiosity isn't going to help them at this point. They're already in danger mode. Don't do it in front of other people. And don't lead with sarcasm. Or sarcastic to say, just checking in, when you're actually irritated. Check-ins should happen at low threat times. Okay? Want me to text you after your meeting to help you reset and restart? Check-ins aren't just you helping the forgetful one make it reciprocal. Can I check in on your goal too? Want to build a streak together? A streak? We talked about social media, right? Social media streaks, reminding you. Okay, let's do 15 minutes of focus and report back. We can be each other's finish line. This removes hierarchy and makes you on the same level. It makes it collaborative, not collective. Okay? A check-in is not a leash. You understand? It's not a leash. It's a life raft. And the person tossing it better not be tying guilt to it. Okay? Because you're an asshole if you do that. Don't do that shit. That's not your friend. It's not your friend. Just going to be honest. Okay? Partner anchor check-ins should be pre-agreed, shame-free, curious, not corrective, mutually supportive, safe in tone, in timing, and intent. That is how you work around that dysfunction. Okay? So, you are just unsupported by your systems, which is why you're having issues with memory. All right? You need external scaffolding. So you'll need visual timers, not just audio, visual ones, a countdown timer. Okay? You might need a tracker, a wearable tracker that alerts you. Dry erase board, notebooks. It doesn't help if you never open the freaking notebook, though. Okay? Memory strategies that don't lead to, fistfights and divorces. All right? Ask for help without handing off responsibility. And remember, if this is your partner, if we're talking about your spouse, your partner, you had better be saying, you're not failing. We just need to help you find a better system. You don't need to be more disciplined. You need to be more resourced. Okay? And coming soon on the Salt Vault will be some memory rescue kits that will be available. Some for free, some behind a paywall. All depends. Okay? So I'll also be putting together a Sticky Thoughts worksheet that'll be printable, or you can download it on your mobile device. Okay? So this week, I'd like you to send me a photo of your new Memory Hub setup. Tag me at the Salty Goddess, okay? Hashtag leaky cup no more. Start putting together your scaffolding and get yourself an anchor check-in partner. Memory, working memory, short-term memory, it's an executive dysfunction. And all of us, to a degree, have it. We just need to set up the systems to give us the scaffolding that we need to be more successful in what we're planning to do. It's that simple. So, this was executive dysfunction number 5 this week. We've got 3 more to go. And then we're going to switch gears and talk about a few other things on the podcast with some guests. So I want to say thank you for joining me this week on your Hump Day Guilty Pleasure, the Salty Goddess podcast. Stay salty, stay savage, stay scaffolded. All right. I'm Anne Margaret Perry, and I will see you all next week. Bye-bye, y'all.